is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Harry Potter, the rereading. Sorcerer's Stone, chapters 1 through 5. In these chapters, RoShawn made me say that. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Abracadabra on a nigga. Expecto Patronum on a nigga. What? If Mo-Fi gon' run up on me, then I'ma put my wand to the nigga. Hey. Ron in the back, Hermeline on the sack. Y'all motherfuckers don't know how to act. Voldemort, they got shit on me. Say hell, Gryffindor, and fuck Slytherin. Run on your ass with Sirius Black. Disappear for a minute, then be right back. Professor Snape wanna make a portion. You ashy as fuck, you better get some lotion. Put a spell on a nigga, then I dab on a nigga. Call Voldemort, then I fuck on a nigga. My wizard's lit, y'all don't even know. When I'm with your girl, I steal the show. Cause I got that black magic. Got that black magic.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha.
And I'm still RoShawn.
Oh, man. You got to me a little bit today, lady. So, yeah, guys, it's time to start the rereading. I'm super excited about it.
I am, too.
And you said that you had a good time doing this, so that's awesome.
I did. I flew through these chapters, and it was a lot of fun to reread them.
A lot more happens in 5 chapters than I remembered. Like, because
yeah,
that's basically like the whole intro of everything is just done now.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I want to say hi to some people because we have some new patrons, we have some GoFundMe donors, and we have some people who sent lovely presents, which are always fun. So, new patrons this week, we have Iha again, Molly Murray, and Vanessa Marino all became patrons. So welcome to all of you. Thank you so much. And those of you who are $5 and up can immediately listen to me and Maggie talk about Twin Peaks. And yes, we will be covering the new season. So we're about 2/3 of the way through season 2. So the new season will be coming up. Pretty good timing, actually, on that. And then I wanted to say thank you to Catherine Horn Giannaloni, who sent me a couple of little presents. She sent me a steaming pitcher and tamper for making espresso with an espresso machine, and a little box of bath bombs. And then and that was in the first box that I got. And she sent me this really nice card about helping her remember that the patriarchy can only get her down if she lets it. And then she messaged me and she's like, oh, and there's one more thing that's coming. And she sent me a new pair of headphones, which is such perfect timing because mine are literally like falling apart. And I was thinking, oh, God, I'm going to have to spend money on this thing. And I don't, because Catherine got them for me. So thank you, Catherine, so much. And they're purple and they're great. And I wanted to also say thank you to Jamie Smith, who is a co-host, as some of you know, for the Lost show and the Band of Brothers show, and coming up, the Vampire Diaries show, which is going to be starting soon. And she sent me a bunch of goodies from Starbucks because she works there.
Oh, I want to say thank you to Jamie, too. She sent me a really nice card.
Oh, yay.
That I got this week that was very sweet and thoughtful, so thank you for that.
Yay. Yeah, I was like, I love Starbucks merch. I don't know why. Like, call me bougie. It's fine. I'm basic. I don't care. Mm-hmm. I love their shit, though. I just do. So it was a bunch of stuff from like Christmas time that I guess they were just going to toss. And I'm like, yes. So I got that now. And I wanted to say thanks to a bunch of people who donated to the GoFundMe, because we are at this point, if you want to donate, by the way, it's gofundme.com/unspoiledhpworld. And we are at $485, which is amazing. And some people were really, really generous. So I'm going to leave anonymous the people who want to be anonymous, but we know who you are. So thank you to Amanda Campbell, Tessa French, anonymous, Sarah Baggs, Jessica Dawn, Elizabeth Burkskaug, Megan Tolentino, anonymous, Those two anonymouses made $100 and $250 donations respectively.
Wow.
You guys are maniacs, and thank you
Crazy.
so much.
And we know who you are.
We do know who you are. I kind of want to out you, but I won't.
But we're not.
I'm
We're
not
gonna.
And Courtney Ramirez and Lindsay Anderson. Thank you both so much. And Lindsay left a nice comment. Just a little thank you now that I've binged my way up to date on HP. I hope you both have an amazing time, and I can't wait to virtually join you or hear all about it.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, thank you guys so much.
I just want to say really quickly, too, that we were talking before we started recording, and even though we've been talking about this trip for a little while, I don't think I ever thought that it was going to be really possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Mm-hmm. It was, but some things have started happening, and I think for the first time I'm starting to really believe that we're actually going to be able to do this.
Yeah, it really, I totally understand what you mean, because it's one thing to just be like, yeah, that'd be fun. And I've had a lot of people coming out of the woodwork who are like, hey, I have, discounts through work, or I can do this, or I can do that. I can't donate, but I can offer this, which I'm like, that's basically donating. Like that's a huge help. So to everybody who's been, messaging me and emailing me and offering help, like, yes, thank you. This is huge, because with more than one person offering to do this, it adds up a lot. And
it really does.
It's enormous. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm just so excited. Oh my God. And I'm going to get to see RoShawn again for the first time in like 3 years. So I wanted to read, we got a couple of new reviews. There's one which in particular, I didn't read the whole thing before we started, but it was going in a direction that I'm like, I'm clearly going to have to read this one. It's 5 stars, simply the best, by Zeppelin Rules from the United States. I'm someone who loves the finer things in life. A sunny afternoon, the smell of raindrops on a fresh-cut lawn, a well-planned mail fraud scheme, pie. And this podcast is definitely one of those finer things. When you spend as much time on the road evading authorities as I do, it can be important to find podcasts that are enjoyable to pass the time, and this Harry Potter recap extravaganza certainly does just that. So much so that I felt compelled to find a computer in the Tulsa Public Library just to write a review. The world must know. For a short while, I was listening to Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, which was nice and all, but it was missing something. One afternoon, I found myself at a diner in Little Rock working on some fraudulent W-2 forms. A fairly casual Tuesday. Staring out the window and twirling my fake mustache in a dreamlike trance, it finally hit me. That podcast was missing a RoShawn. Leaping out of my booth to the barman behind the counter in a tizzy of excitement, I managed to coerce the bloke into letting me borrow his cellular device for a quick search. Typing RoShawn plus Harry Potter plus podcast into Ask Jeeves, I was treated with the fabulous gift of this show and have been hooked ever since. Open parentheses. Side note, I should explain how I listen to the podcast without a cellular device of my own. Given the vagabond nature of my movements across the country, having a computer in my pocket that lets people know where I am is an obvious non-starter. I managed to listen to my shows by stopping at various libraries and Radio Shacks across the country to copy podcasts onto my tape recorder. It's fun. Close parentheses. Getting yourself sucked into this show from the beginning episodes, you'll find a lot to love. From the conclusions the two hosts draw from the text, to the ever-changing tiers of the Patreon program, to the ongoing threat of a Trump presidency. There's even some jokes about lobsters, which were fun, yes, but I found to be in poor taste due to the fact that in a former life I prepared bisques somewhat professionally and find such crustaceans no laughing matter. However, I am pleased to say that RoShawn and Natasha are laughing matters. These two women are hilarious. I was listening to an episode when I was posing as the governor of Iowa for a day in an effort to gain access to some banking codes, and the snorts these ladies gave me almost blew my cover. But alas, the chortles were worth it. Download this podcast, dear reader. Go on this journey. I hope to be caught up by the time I make it to Anchorage. It will be sad, but all good things come to an end. P.S. If any of you are reading this and are in Anchorage, I'll be at the Capitol steps over the next few days passing out information on a fantastic investment opportunity that I think you might enjoy.
This is my new favorite person in the world.
Oh, Zeppelin rules. You are my new Swiss knight. I'm screenshotting that.
Amazing.
Those of you who had never listened to the Song of Ice and Fire podcast, there was a reviewer named Swiss Knight on iTunes who would leave reviews or comments that suggested that they were a war criminal. They were amazing. And then they started a Twitter account under the same username. They started it for us because there were no previous tweets from the account, and started to send us these bizarre tweets. And it was the funniest thing. So Zeppelin rules, please start a Twitter with that username. I'll check and see if there is one already. And we can definitely get a thing going.
Keep us up to date on your shenanigans as you're out on the road, because we're all going to be deeply concerned for your well-being.
New official sponsor, Zeppelin rules. Go invest some money and we'll get 10% or something. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah. This was great. We are at 268 reviews all together, so I'm super excited. And I wanted to let everybody know too that I'm going to be on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/unspoiledpod. There's a sign up button, which up until now had been, you would click it and it would bring you to the Patreon page. I'm going to temporarily make that go to the sign up for the newsletter, because a lot of people have gotten in touch with me since I said that I needed to figure out a way to tap into new listener bases and stuff. And they said, creating a mailing list where you can update people on events for the show and stuff, because people don't always listen to the end of the show, or people don't always go to the Facebook page. That is a really great way to keep everyone abreast of the news in Unspoiled land. So, go to facebook.com/unspoiledpod and click sign up and give me your information. And I won't be messaging you that often because, frankly, making a newsletter is kind of a pain in the ass. So don't worry. I won't be up in your fucking inbox every day. But I will let you know when there's new stuff starting, or when we're coming back to something that had been off the air, or, any big events, or, book club stuff or whatever. Cocktail hours. Those are for patrons only, but I'll still probably just let people know about those too. So yeah, that's what's up. So I had been saying that I was going to do the news at the top of the hour, and I totally have not been doing that. So just last night when I was recording with Alan, he was like, "Didn't you say?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." So I'm trying to actually fulfill my word. What were you going to say?
Time.
Yeah, right, probably.
Is the reread patrons only?
No, the reread's for everybody.
Oh, for some reason I thought it was patrons only.
Yeah, you have thought it's patrons only, and I've corrected you 3 times, and you keep thinking that.
Patrons only.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. None of you get to listen to this, so you can blame RoShawn for that.
I'm so stuck on that idea. I think it's because I feel like only patrons would be interested in a reread.
Honestly, if it seems like I'm not getting that many downloads, maybe I will just make it patrons only. But
I mean, I want everyone to listen, of course.
The patrons only Harry Potter stuff is going to be us covering Cursed Child, us covering the 8 movies all in one shot, us covering Fantastic Beasts, all that extra stuff.
All right.
Which people constantly ask me, "Are you guys doing this and that?" And I'm like, I feel like we've talked about that we're going to do that stuff.
But we're going to just keep talking about it.
But people still ask me, so I'm never sure what I've said. Yeah, I think that's what it is I say that stuff at the end, and nobody ever listens to the end. Yeah. So that's why I'm starting it at the top, guys. So no excuses anymore. I'm just going to stop replying to you guys. I'm just going to start sending you minute 4 and 30 seconds. That's all I'm going to reply. Be like, go to this moment, because I said it. I said it already. I'm just going to be really fucking snotty about it.
You would never.
Sure. Never.
A different you would never. Not the you.
And yeah, on the note of the trip, we already said things are looking up, that we're definitely like thinking that we're going to be able to do this. And reminder, we're going to be, at least I will be, and I think RoShawn also, because it's super affordable, we'll be staying at Cabana Bay, and it'll be 5 nights. So if you guys want to come down there and join us, I'm going to try and like make something happen that people can come to, even if they're not like staying there or going to the parks and stuff, have an event. And I think what I want that to be is us watching the first movie while listening to Wizard People, Dear Readers.
Ooh, fun.
And probably I'll live stream that on the Facebook page, and I'll record it too. Record our discussion of it afterwards, because it is hilarious. So that's the idea. It's just figuring out exactly how much room I'm going to need, because I don't know who's coming.
Right.
So we'll see about that. But yeah.
And the worst case scenario, we all just pile up in a hotel room.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, Chris Tex Holcomb had said, well, I'm going to go to this and I'll get a suite and we can use my suite.
Chris is coming?
Chris is coming.
Oh, that's amazing.
But Chris got laid off. So now I'm not sure if that suite's like doable for Chris anymore. So, we'll see.
We might have to double up on a room.
Right? Yeah. We're going to be like fucking bunking. It's going to be like the barracks in the bottom levels of the Titanic.
Steerage.
We're filling with water. What's happening? There's a leak in the pool. All right. So back to the show. Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. So tell me about rereading this. What was this like?
So, okay, it turns out, and I had forgotten this, but I think we talked about it when we first recorded. I had notes in these early chapters, which I forgot that I did. Like I underlined stuff.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
And so the first note is on like page 10 or something. It's on page 12. And I wrote, Messiah again, boring.
Oh God, that is wonderful.
This is for that page is the scene where Dumbledore is telling McGonagall that, Voldemort has killed Lily and James, and that Harry doesn't die. So clearly, folks, at the beginning of this book, I was not here for it. But I'm really glad that changed. But I had completely forgotten that was my first reaction to the story.
Oh, that is so funny, though. Like, because I knew you weren't here for it initially. Like, it wasn't like you were even trying to hide it. It was just, yeah.
But, and then I had some stuff underlined about the Dursleys because I was really disgusted with them. There's a line I had marked out where on page 5, super early, and it is where Wizard hugs Vernon. Right. And he says, don't be sorry, my dear, for nothing could upset me today. Mm-hmm. And I have just parentheses next to it. But I didn't write any notes, so I have no idea why that stuck out to me.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, and then the last thing I think I had underlined is the line where it says that Mr. Dursley does not approve of imagination.
Right. Yeah, that is a good line too. He was hoping, he told himself he was imagining things which he had never hoped before because he did not approve of imagination.
Yeah. And I was just like, well, this is telling me pretty much everything I need to know about this guy. Mm-hmm. But rereading it now, knowing, the whole deal, I thought I would have more sympathy for them, for Petunia and for Vernon. Mm-hmm. And turns out I didn't.
Nope.
I really didn't.
Nope.
They're just as awful reading it a second time as they were the first time. They're just awful people.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I didn't really put it to words that I was thinking I would be more sympathetic, but I guess I was too, expecting that. And instead, it's just, no, there's no excuse for this, though. Yeah.
They're just terrible. And I was thinking, we don't talk about it much because the Dursleys, we only see them over summer vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we get into the world of the wizards and witches and Voldemort and purebloods and all that. But I don't know if bigotry is the right word, but I feel like the Dursleys were incredibly bigoted against wizards and witches.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Right?
I think that's a fine word.
But it's framed very much in just their desire to be normal,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to what it really was, which feels like a hatred and a fear
mm-hmm.
of things that they don't understand,
and a jealousy,
and a deep-seated jealousy that we don't learn about until much later in the
mm-hmm.
book, right? Like where it's all coming from. But yeah, they were just as awful as the first time I met them. And oh my God, Dudley.
Right.
Jesus. How about one of his first words being won't?
Won't.
Like, oh, he learned a new word today. Won't.
Yeah, this is although it's like a definite like departure in tone in many ways because of how much more childish this opening is.
Yeah.
It's still really engaging right away. And she tells you everything you need to know, like you said.
Yeah, she really does. And as I was reading the first two chapters, I was thinking, well, shit, she laid it all out about how these people are.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we go through this whole story and I was continually surprised at how terrible they were.
Yeah, you keep hoping that there's going to be some kind of like fairy tale resolution.
Something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and at the end, I'm like, why would I think that? Because she told me at the beginning, these are terrible people. Don't expect anything from them. They have nothing to offer you.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, throughout the book, I was hoping that there would be some kind of, I don't want to say redemption, but some kind of something.
Yeah.
You know. And we don't ever get that because they can't give it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that because we talked a little bit last week about the fact, I'm sorry, every time somebody signs on to Skype, I know that sound shows up in the podcast. It makes me crazy. But the sign on, boop, boop, boop. Oh, it's awful. But we talked a little bit about how Rowling had considered having Petunia say something like sort of apologetic or kind to Harry, and then she was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But what I hadn't really thought about was that we're in Harry's head pretty much always, and Harry never, ever thinks that's going to happen.
Isn't that funny?
It's always us as readers that put that on him.
That is so true. He never expects that from them because he knows them.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It is the reader bringing in their own sort of what they would like to see and what they would need to hear to feel better. Harry doesn't have that misapprehension at all.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's actually kind of important because I think that, reconciling it's a really tempting thing to do as a writer, but just, as a person to want somebody to understand the damage that they did. Mm-hmm. But it's a really realistic thing to have somebody never learn.
Yeah.
That's life. Especially having Mother's Day just a few weeks ago, there are a lot of people out there with terrible relationships with their parents, and the world tells them that they need to work it out.
Yeah.
And that they're not in a good relationship now, that one is possible. Right. And that they just need to figure out a way. And I just don't believe that. There are people in your life that are toxic, and sometimes those toxic people happen to be your parents.
Agreed. We leave very little space in the real world for those types of situations.
Mm-hmm.
We don't leave any safe space for someone to be like, you know what? No, my parents are just toxic, terrible people that I cannot have in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Everything around us says, oh, you should build bridges. That's a thing we like to say all the time.
Yeah, right.
Build bridges. And when someone has the courage to be like, no, there's no bridge to be built, a lot of times the response will be, oh, you're just not trying hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Or it doesn't mean enough to you, or if you really cared, or it would be better for you, if you did.
Yeah.
And that's a weird thing that I think we have collectively, is that we are very reluctant to admit some things are just final.
Yep.
Some things are just what they are.
People don't always change.
Yeah.
Like, we want to think that as people age and as time passes, that they'll begin to see things more clearly, that they'll grow wiser, that they will recognize mistakes and patterns that they have in their lives. And that is certainly true of plenty of people.
Sure.
But usually people who start out abusive are that way because they have very little self-awareness in a lot of senses. And so it's pretty rare for somebody who is abusive to become introspective and start to understand.
Right. And there's plenty of times for Petunia to come to terms with the fact that what she's really feeling is resentment and jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She's had her whole life to come to terms with that. And she chooses not to.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a choice. And to suddenly expect her to, I don't know, get it or whatever at the last minute, like we said last time, wouldn't feel genuine.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that expectation that she's going to have that realization, that epiphany, and suddenly realize she's been a terrible person. And it was all based on these feelings I had that I never worked through. I love that you mentioned that Harry never expects that, though.
Yeah, it's just like, it's something that I didn't really, and this latter part that I'm going to mention isn't really something that J.K. Rowling gets into too much, but another thing that people assume, even if you had a bad childhood, that you're going to have positive associations with places simply because you were a kid here. And Harry cannot wait to never have to come back to this house again.
Yeah.
And there's no positive memories here for him. And some people might say that's extreme, but there are a lot of people in that situation. And there's actual PTSD that can be that can accompany that, and that can be part of why people don't want to reconnect with relatives, because it brings up trauma that they haven't coped with,
right?
Or maybe they've tried to cope with, and it still happens. And I think that J.K. Rowling started off writing the Dursleys in this sort of cartoonish way, but wound up dealing with it in a really realistic way, surprisingly.
I was thinking that as well, reading these first chapters, how much of a, like you said, almost cartoonish they are. And everything they do that's terrible is sort of hinged on a joke, though. So you kind of laugh about it. Even though there's nothing really inherently funny about their behavior, but it's framed that way. And there's a line that I don't think I really paid attention to, but it talks about Vernon when he goes to work and how he's actually in a really good mood, and that he yelled at 4 different people and had very important telephone conversations. And it's real quick. The line is super quick, but it just tells you so much about what he is and who he is as a person, and what makes him feel good, what makes him feel important. And reading it, you're just of course, this is who Petunia marries.
Yeah.
Of course. And then also reading about Dudley. Has there ever been a worse kid?
Dudley is like Trump. He's like Trump as a child.
Little bit. Yeah. I agree with that. And his parents are just, it's so gross. And when he's complaining about his presents and he doesn't have as many as he had last year, and Vernon's like, that's my boy, he wants his money's worth. I'm like, ew.
Right?
Just ew.
Yeah, there were some kids in my school that I remember being like, how many presents did you get after Christmas? And it had never fucking entered my head to count my presents. Yeah.
Who says that?
And they wanted to compare notes about what they got, and they were actually giving things a dollar value, whether or not something was an expensive present or not. And again, it just never occurred to me to do that. And for a minute, I tried to put my head there, but my parents just didn't have it to spend. So
Right.
I immediately like kind of rejected it, like mentally rejected it, not even consciously. I was just like, no, I don't like this. And I just never really went back to it that way again.
It's funny. I was going through some family albums looking for something over the last couple of weeks with my, my father's anniversary and everything. And I came across a set of Christmas pictures from when I was probably about 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I had bomb-ass Christmases the first couple of years of my life. I don't know how my mom did it, but I just got a ton of shit. Like, she must have started shopping and layawaying like January 1st.
Wow, okay.
But by the time I was in the 4th or 5th grade, everything that I had gotten in the previous years was all gone. From moving around so much and not being able to take everything with you.
Yeah.
So like all the shit I had gotten, like I only had it for like a couple years, and then I would have to leave it to move to go someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I ever thought later in life with Christmases. Like I never once thought, oh, this isn't as good as the Christmas I had that year.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't like made that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I've really ever known anybody in real life. Like you said, you had people in school who did that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever met anybody in real life who admitted out loud that they were like taking a full accounting of their Christmas in that fashion.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would react to it if I met somebody who was doing that.
Yeah, I remember thinking that maybe it was me. You know how that is when you're a kid, where you're just like, oh, is that what I'm supposed to do? Do people do that? And it was a very like, there was almost a way that they did it that made me feel like they didn't even really understand what they were saying, which is probably exactly the truth, that they like heard this kind of language from their parents or something, and like this value judgment about stuff. And they applied it in the way that they understood, limited way. And so that makes me wonder, like when you're around your parents and you're hearing that kind of thing, are they talking about gifts that they got from somebody and what they spent versus what the present they got from that person cost? Which has got to lead to you being like really paranoid when you buy presents as an adult for your parents, right? When you know that they do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So yeah, we learn a lot about the Dursleys in a real short time. And then we have at the end of that same chapter, McGonagall sitting on the wall in front of the Dursleys' house, and Dumbledore strolling up.
I have put her outer circled in my book.
Yep. I remember we specifically talked about that. And I was like, I promise it gets better.
I was like ready to tap. I was like, no, I can't do this. If this is what she's bringing, I'm not interested in this story.
Yeah.
And it's in knowing where she takes the story and how complex it gets. It's really laughable that something like that is in the early stages.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess she just, because later she calls it the Illuminator.
The Deluminator. So
it was just a matter of her finding the right word for it, and she just didn't have it at the time, I guess.
It is kind of funny, though, that no editor was like, well, you came up with Deluminator, so let's just go with that. Even, like, in future copies,
Right, like, just change it. But,
but they did not.
They didn't, and it's there for all the world to see, and it's ridiculous.
Her ass is out. I love that phrase, and I never use it, but that feels appropriate.
Oh, your ass is just out?
Yep. He's showing his whole ass.
Flapping in the breeze.
And they're talking about what happened, and it's how was it to read about this when we know everything later?
It was, it's funny, like, I was trying to remember what it was like reading it the first time, and it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I appreciated the sadness of it when I first read it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't invested in these characters. I didn't know who Lily and James were.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? But rereading it and like McGonagall doesn't know that it's true.
Right.
Like the whole day. Also, I have to say that I really giggled because there's all this talk about owls in the first two chapters. And of course, I had no idea at the time. But reading it tonight, I was like, oh, that's everybody's text messages blowing up.
I guess that's exactly it, isn't it?
But so she's been hearing crazy rumors, and she doesn't know exactly what's true, and she's waiting for Albus to really confirm what's happened. And she's almost like doesn't want to get confirmation about Lily and James.
Right.
Like she's heard it. She doesn't really want to ask, but finally she has to ask because Dumbledore is Dumbledoring from the very beginning.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the first time we meet him, he's barely saying shit. And she has to really finally come out and ask directly, and it's true. And I don't think I appreciated how sad that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember getting this news early in the book and being affected by it. But then reading it tonight, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. It just starts right off with that terrible, it just starts out with awfulness.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember at all what it was like for me when I first read this. So I haven't got anything to add in terms of like perspective because like you said, I wasn't invested. So they're talking about, oh, Lily and James. And I'm like, whatever. Yeah. What's going on with this kid though?
Yeah. Right.
And she asks him where Harry is. And he says that he has Hagrid bringing him. And she says, well, I'm not saying his heart isn't in the right place, but you can't pretend he's not careless, which is essentially exactly my feeling about Hagrid. Mm-hmm. She's like, he's a good dude, but also like,
She's like, are you sure that's what you want to do here? And then it just sort of, and you know what else I had forgotten? I forgot that Hagrid told Harry that he got expelled when they first meet. Yeah. But that he doesn't tell him why. Mm-hmm. I've forgotten all about that.
Is there anything mad and hairy loose in the castle lately? And not only that, but he mentions Sirius Black, that he borrowed the motorcycle from him.
So, which is weird because Sirius is should be locked up.
Not yet.
Or maybe not yet because the thing has just happened.
Mm-hmm.
So... yeah, I guess he's not locked up yet because this is like the night of the attack. So, oh man.
So it's like I'm not going to pretend that everything J.K. Rowling has happening in the later books was set up from the beginning because it's clear that it wasn't, and that's fine. But there is a lot that is set up that she clearly was like ready with.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's trying to get this kind of shit organized in my own series, this is not easy. So I forgive her for sometimes taking credit for things that I'm not really entirely sure maybe she should be taking credit for. Because there are times where she's like, oh yeah, I planned that. And I'm like, bitch, you didn't. Like, I don't buy it at all. But I'm also kind of like, I don't think you did, but you also did like more than I can even imagine. So I will let you have that one. Because I'm super generous.
Well, that's what you're known for.
Right.
I had also forgotten, too, how against McGonagall was about leaving Harry with the Dursleys.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, we find out later that that's super important that he goes there every summer.
Right.
But we have no idea at the time. So I was reading this, and I was just like, you know what? What if... And Dumbledore has his whole, well, you don't want a boy to grow up, what... Imagine, what does it say? Imagine what his head how big his head would get.
Yeah.
You know, basically, like Harry would have too much of an ego if he grew up in the wizarding world, knowing how special he was from day one.
Right.
However, I feel like McGonagall made some strong points about leaving him with these people.
Yep, she sure did.
And I found myself wondering, and this is completely off book and we'll never have an answer, but I understand that this was his only family, his only living relatives.
Mm-hmm.
But was there no one else he could have left him with? No other, like, retired witch that would have taken in a boy, you know? In a small, like, little village somewhere?
It's the protection spell, that's it.
Yeah, that's the only thing, isn't it? That's really the only thing. And it's funny to think that that house that was so horrible, that did so much damage, was also his protection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up.
A little bit.
Like, it's poetic, but also just kind of wrong. Like, I can't really decide how I feel about that, to be honest.
Yeah. It's tough to swallow.
Which I think is, again, a thing that people have with, like, abusers, right? Somebody who was shit to you, but also they, like, took care of you in their way. So you feel like you should be grateful, weirdly.
That's true. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It is kind of like that. Because it's the only place you know. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's the place that gave you shelter and gave you food, but treated you like shit.
And oftentimes abusers will be quick to remind you that nobody else would treat you this well. Nobody else even wants you. Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? I think that they probably said that to Harry all the time.
Probably. Yeah, they're very free with being like, don't be ridiculous. Marge hates the boy when they're trying to figure out what to do with him.
I forgot about that too. The way they talk about him, like he's either not there or he's too, can't pay attention and doesn't understand how they're talking about him. He says like a slug.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's something to that I just never, I don't think I've really fully appreciated the first few times. And having made friends with a wider variety of people who have much more, like every family has their bullshit. Everybody has baggage. But I've only recently, like, become close with people who have genuinely fucked relationships with their parents, like their direct family. And what a cesspool of emotions it is, and how conflicting everything is, because you can hate somebody but feel guilty for hating them even though they 100% deserve it.
Yeah.
And then, like, hate yourself for hating them, but then you, like, try and tell yourself but they do deserve it, and just the act of telling yourself that they deserve it makes you feel like you hate yourself even more. Yep. And this, like, cycle. And then, the people who do try and reach out to their family, they do try and make it right. And that turns out that the person has not changed a whit in 2 decades, and they're thrown right back into the same bullshit and realize, oh my God, I made a terrible mistake. I thought that this was going to be growth, and it's not.
Yep. It's like you think about, okay, what redeeming qualities did the Dursleys have? And the best you can do is the bare minimum.
They kept him alive.
Exactly. They didn't outright kill him. They gave him like a cupboard under the stairs to sleep in and marginally fed him.
Intermittent feedings, yes.
And that's it. That's pretty much it. But that is something.
Yeah, it's something.
It's something. Yeah, it's a weird place to be in.
All right, so next chapter, Vanishing Glass. When they go to the zoo. And Dudley's birthday, they're supposed to drop Harry off with Mrs. Fig, who we later find out is a squib.
Yeah.
And
I was really mad too, I have to say.
What's that? Why?
Because of course, you guys know me and I had forgotten. But when Harry talks about all the time he spent with her and how unpleasant it is, and I got like a little pang, like she could have been the one, like, bright spot. She didn't necessarily have to tell him about the wizarding world, but she could have, she could have been a bright spot.
Yeah. Do you remember what she says to him about that? Why she isn't nicer to him?
Does she say she doesn't? I don't remember.
She says, I'm sorry I gave you such a terrible time, but the Dursleys would never have let you come if they thought you enjoyed it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
See, that makes me even madder. Because, like, my brain is like, you could have just told him that, and he would have kept the secret. He was so desperate.
I mean...
But I get it.
He was a kid, though. Like, do you think he could have kept the secret? I don't know.
No. His eyes would have lit up when he wasn't paying attention at the mention of her name, and they would have known, you know. Oh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
All right, so the zoo.
So they're heading there, and then Harry mentions, and this chapter starts off with, like, Harry waking up from a dream where there is a flying motorcycle. And he also thinks about how he doesn't remember the car crash that killed his parents, but he does remember a flash of green light, which he finds really weird, and he doesn't know why there would be green light during a car crash.
Yeah. And he's not allowed to talk about it. He's not allowed to ask any questions about his parents or the crash or anything. So...
And this is just, you know, when you don't know what's going on, you're just kind of like, okay, they're clearly hiding something, but who knows what. And then once you actually go back and reread it, it just feels so much more wrong. Like, especially that he can remember any of it. So he has an inkling that these things don't line up, but he just can't, he doesn't have the knowledge to really bring the ends together.
Yep, and there's no way, it doesn't seem at this time anyway, that there's ever going to be a way for him to find out. And he's so, like, he has got surviving in their household down to a science practically.
Yeah.
You know, which is another thing that happens when you live under those kind of circumstances where you become an expert in navigating.
Yeah.
And
reading people's moods and stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So he knows that he can't bring these things up. And when he kind of half-mindedly makes the mention of the dream, you know, Vernon gets all pissed off. And he's like, it was just a dream. But it's not even, you're not even allowed to voice that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, in the
context of a dream.
The way it's phrased is they seem to think that it would give him dangerous ideas. So, you know, they are aware of his background. Yeah. And every time he mentions anything unusual, they're sure that this is evidence of his wizardliness starting to come out.
And that's a weird thing to be around when people are hyper aware of something that you aren't fully aware of, and you know they're reacting to it, but you can't like really put your finger on it, which is what it must have been like for him for those whole 11 years. It's amazing that he's not like insane. You know, like honestly, really like think about it, you know? It's amazing that he managed to be as well adjusted as he as Harry seems to be.
Yeah, that's true. He's even like, you know, in these moments he is kind of clapping back at Dudley despite all of this, which is something that, you know, a lot of kids would just become completely introverted. So he's like, oh, you want me to shove your head down the toilet to practice?
You know, and he's very crafty. Like there's the part where they go get ice cream for Dudley and his friend, I think it's Piers
Polkiss.
And Harry has the wherewithal to answer the vendor right away, you know, before they have a chance to be like, no, he doesn't want anything. And manages to get a little, you know, like a lemon popsicle out of the deal. Right.
Yeah, he's like, they want to be normal so bad, I have to capitalize on that.
Exactly.
Shame them publicly.
Yep.
So he is in the reptile house, and the snake is getting bothered by Dudley and his dad because Dudley wants it to move. and he tells his dad to do something and tap on the window and whatever. And finally, he gets bored and walks away, and the snake sits up and winks at Harry, and with body language is like, "Oh, I get that all the time." And Harry is like, immediately is like, "I'm talking to a snake. I guess this is happening," and like gets into a conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be any sort of stop and being like, "What's happening right now?"
Right.
It's weird too. Doesn't it say it feels like he can just hear it, but he doesn't feel like he's talking to it? But then it turns out that Piers sees him talking to it.
Yeah, Piers is like, you won't believe what it's doing. Come see this. But because it's through the glass, so it doesn't talk at first. It doesn't talk until the glass is gone. And then when it goes by him, he hears it hissing and whispering. Yeah.
It's just sort of like nodding its head.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, amigo.
I think we had a problem with that. I think I was irritated by that.
Yeah, I feel like somebody messaged me and said that amigo is actually like said in Brazil, or that maybe in this part of Brazil. Somebody like explained it and it actually made sense.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sorry, because that was like literally years ago at this point. I don't remember why. And at this point, his uncle goes absolutely bananas and makes him stay in his cupboard for like a month.
Yeah.
Basically.
With no food. Because that's a thing we do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I also like that there's a little bit about how quickly the story gets exaggerated.
Yeah.
To hear Dudley and his friend talk about it, their life was in jeopardy and the snake practically ate them.
And let's see. And then the letters. This is a good time. I like this part. Harry gets a letter for the first time ever addressed to him and the cupboard under the stairs. And he starts to open it and Vernon snatches it away from him, just thinking that he's like poking his nose where it doesn't belong. He doesn't even think about it at first. And then he sees where it's from and he loses his mind.
Fucking panic ensues.
Yep.
Because if we hadn't gotten it at this point, now we understand this is absolutely a thing that they have been dreading and fearing.
Yep.
Since he showed up on their doorstep. This is like their worst nightmare come to bear.
Yep.
And I had, I don't think I really appreciated, and I should have, because it's really laid right out there, how quickly and how insane Vernon goes.
Yes.
I mean, because like him or not, he's presented as a really solid dude. Like he's just what he is, and he's that all the time, right? Like not easily flustered. He's whatever. But this whole thing surrounding Harry is like the one thing that can, like, a chink in his armor,
Okay.
And these letters, which it doesn't say exactly how much time has passed, but it doesn't feel like it's much more than like a week and a half.
Yeah, I think it's only a week.
And he goes bananas.
Yep.
Like he stops going to work, which we already know is super important to him. Mm-hmm. He's nailing up windows and gaps around doors and sleeping in front of the mailbox and then driving his family, like out into nowhere with no plan and getting a loaded rifle at one point. And
yep.
It's a really stark, drastic descent into madness that we see him go through. And we know about Petunia, right? We know her backstory, but we don't really know that much of a backstory about Vernon.
No, I don't think we've got much.
So all I can imagine is that he is just one of those types of people. you know, that are like really small-minded. And I don't know, just like the worst stereotype of like a suburban guy.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, who just doesn't know anything about anything and is afraid of everything and thinks he's better than everything. And just all that wrapped up into one despicable person.
Yeah, I think that about does it. That's it. So, yeah, he drags them out into he goes to a hotel, but then the letters arrive at the hotel front desk. So finally he's like, oh, here's a lovely little shack out on the fucking ocean. And he says, like, don't worry, I've brought supplies, but it turns out to be like 5 bags of chips and some bananas.
Yeah. There's they move him from the cupboard to like a bedroom because they're like ashamed, I think, that someone, they don't know who, knows he sleeps in the cupboard.
Right. So
they move him into Dudley's spare room with all his like broken shit because he doesn't appreciate anything because he's terrible. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time, well, really the first time is the letter that we see them not give in to Dudley.
Yes.
You know, because he demands to see the letter and they won't let him see it. And then they move Harry into his room and he hates that, but they don't cave on that either. So we know this thing that they're afraid of is so serious that they're actually saying no to Dudley for the first time.
Yep. And I love the detail that, like, he had done all of his usual tricks. Mm-hmm. He had made himself throw up. He had cried. He had thrown things. And yet, still, Harry was in his room. So, they wind up at the shack. And they're sleeping, and it's Harry's birthday the next day. And he is counting down the minutes until he turns 11. And all of a sudden, there is a huge booming knock on the door. And who should arrive but Rubius Hagrid? And he is under the assumption that Harry knows what he is and who he is and what his parents are and what happened to them. Yeah. And as soon as he finds out that is not the case, he loses his fucking mind.
Is fucking outraged.
Oh, I love it.
He cannot even believe. And even when he finds out that they haven't told him about, like, what he is, like, he's pissed about that, but then he's like, okay. And then the next thing is like Hogwarts. It's like, oh, you don't know about Hogwarts? How dare you? It's like every time, like, he just, his reaction is so pure and so angry at each fucking thing.
So fucking Vernon tries to step in and say, like, I forbid you to tell him. To which Hagrid basically makes a jerk off motion and continues right along doing what he was doing.
Basically.
And when he gets to the point of, you know, how Harry's parents died, and he has to tell him that, he's like not prepared to have this conversation.
Yeah, he's like, feels like he shouldn't be the one to tell him, and he figured he knew already, and he's really on the spot. Mm-hmm. And you know, he's trying to tell him, and he really doesn't want to.
Yeah. Yeah, and he doesn't want to say his name, like, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And once he starts telling Harry, and he realizes that not only did they know about his parents being wizards, but they knew how his parents actually died. Like, that more than anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, he is so disgusted and betrayed.
Yeah. And Hagrid is really insulted that they would make up something as pedestrian as a car crash. Because it doesn't do them justice, you know, it doesn't honor them in the way that he feels like they deserve. And when he's telling him about Voldemort, I laughed a little bit.
Which part?
Just the whole part about not wanting to say his name, and Harry's like, well, could you write it down? And Harry's like, well, I can't spell it.
Poor Hagrid. He's got his GED. He isn't
proficient.
He did a correspondence course.
Right. And once he finally is like saying, yeah, you're going to this fucking school, Vernon starts to say, load of old tosh. Now you listen here, boy. I accept there's something strange about you. Probably nothing a good beating wouldn't have cured. And as for all this about your parents, well, they were weirdos, no denying it. And the world's better off without them, in my opinion. Asked for all they got, getting mixed up with these wizarding types. Just what I expected. Always knew they'd come to a sticky end.
What was he thinking?
Right?
Hagrid's like 8 feet tall.
Yep.
What are you even doing right now?
And Hagrid tells him, I'm warning you. You fucking better not. And Vernon backs off, but then makes the mistake of insulting Dumbledore.
Yeah. I love, too, that Hagrid is threatening him with his umbrella.
Yes. And even when he threatens him, he's like, well, actually, I'm going to go after Dudley. So instead of, like, cursing Vernon...
I was like, what the... I was reading that. I was like, wait, why is he pointing at Dudley?
Yep. Yeah, maybe Hagrid's got a little bit of psychological know-how here. Going after the kids, that's the way. Parents don't care about themselves, but their children.
True. That's true. And then he's all disappointed because he meant to turn him into a whole pig and it
Yep.
was only a tail. And then he's like, well, he's pretty much a pig anyway,
Yep.
so maybe it wasn't that much to do.
And finally, Harry, because he's trying to act like, I'm not a wizard, this is a mistake. And he's like, yeah, but you've done stuff, right, that you didn't intend to do. Which he thinks back to all the times that he wound up surprisingly out of Dudley's reach and realizes, oh shit, yeah, that stuff didn't make sense until now. So that must be it. And then they wake up in the morning and they go to Diagon Alley.
This was just as much fun as it was the first time.
Right?
It really was. I don't know how, but it just was. He's so, it's just so amazing. It's this whole other world that's opened up, and to see it again through Harry's eyes was really fun. Mm-hmm. He's just like walking around with his eyes as big as saucers, just like can't believe everything he's seeing.
I love the whole, because it starts off with just this owl showing up trying to peck Hagrid. And it turns out he's getting his daily profit delivery and has to pay the owl. And then they have to walk to Diagon Alley, and Hagrid is enormous. Right. So everybody's like, the fuck is this guy? Like staring at him on the tube and everything. And then they go to the Leaky Cauldron first. And this is a big deal because everybody recognizes Harry.
Yeah. It's it's his first real entry into this world. And I love too that Harry notices right away that the Leaky Cauldron is there, but he suspects that no one else can see it. Mm-hmm. Like people just aren't reacting to it, and he notices that.
That their eyes slid. It says their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side to the record shop on the other, as if they couldn't see the Leaky Cauldron at all.
Which is something we see again and again later in the book.
Yeah.
How these houses and places exist, kind of on our plane, but are just sort of shrouded, so Muggles don't really just pay. It's not that they don't see it, like it's veiled, but just kind of like they don't pay attention to it.
Kind of like Dresden's potion that makes him just blend in.
Yes.
He's not invisible exactly. It's just that nobody cares.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So I love that. I love that Harry notices it so soon. And then there's just the way he's received by everybody in the bar, and that he remembers Diggle, and Diggle is can't believe he's remembered. He's all tickled by it.
That's so sweet. I forgot about that too.
Yeah.
He remembers me. Did you hear?
And the woman Doris who shakes his hand 8 different times.
And this is when we meet Professor Quirrell.
Yeah. I'm still feeling some kind of way about that, guys, all this time later.
Defense against the dark arts, muttered Professor Quirrell as though he'd rather not think about it. Not that you need it, eh, Potter? He laughed nervously. You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. I've got to pick up a new book on vampires myself. He looked terrified at the very thought.
Well, they really did set us up with this, didn't they?
They did.
Like, as soon as he's introduced, he's just completely inept and, like, neutered, and you don't think he's going to be anything.
Yeah, then... especially because Hagrid's like, even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet you. Mind you, he's usually trembling.
Yeah.
Is he always that nervous? Oh, yeah. Poor bloke, brilliant mind. He was fine while he was studying out of books, but then he took a year off to go to get some first-hand experience. Mm-hmm. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest, and there was a nasty bit of trouble with a hag. Never been the same since. Scared of his students, scared of his own subject. Yeah,
maybe somebody should have asked him some more pointed questions about what happened while he was off in the forest.
I love rereading these and seeing how soon so much of this stuff is set up. Mm-hmm. And you just totally don't notice it because why would you? Because it just sounds like funny things.
Yeah, like why would I pay attention to that?
Yep.
Well, two faces. That's why, RoShawn.
Right?
That's why you should have paid attention to that.
The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons, all sizes, copper, brass, pewter, silver, self-stirring, collapsible, said a sign hanging over them. Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary was shaking her head as they passed, saying, "Dragon liver, 17 sickles an ounce. They're mad." A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying, "Ilep's Owl Emporium, tawny, screech, barn, brown, and snowy." Several boys of about Harry's age had their noses pressed against a window with broomsticks in it. "Look," Harry heard one of them say, "the new Nimbus 2000, fastest ever." There were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before, windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens and eagle's eyes, tottering piles of spellbooks, quills, and rolls of parchment, potion bottles, globes of the moon. "Gringotts," said Hagrid. And here is the poem. "Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned. Beware of finding more than treasure there." I love that poem the most. I just love the way it ends, of finding more than treasure there, because it's just so vague and creepy. So the goblins.
Yeah. So they go. So Griphook is the same goblin from later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's they take Harry to his vault, and it's teeming.
Yes.
Turns out Harry is affluent. He just doesn't know it.
And they have to take the ride down and everything, and Harry was not expecting that. He thinks that they're just going to walk down to some vaults.
Right.
Surprise.
Yeah. Hagrid does not do well with the ride.
No.
And he also is trying to explain to Harry how the currency works, which is so fucking weird.
That's right.
Makes no sense. 17 silver sickles to a galleon, 29 newts to a sickle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of fucking... We need base 10.
Do you know what? Like, because I always say that. Do you know that the fucking, like, halfpenny, shilling, guinea system was like that? Like, it was an uneven number like, it was the dumbest thing. I had to find a thing that explains it, because I remember looking it up finally and just being like, are you serious? That's how this operated for that long? Shilling, what is it? Guinea, pound,
a pence?
halfpenny.
I don't know what a pence is. I just wanted to say it.
I think a pence is new.
Oh, okay.
Under this system, there were 12 pence in a shilling and 20 shillings, or 240 pence, in a pound. The penny was subdivided into 4 farthings until December 1960, when they ceased to be legal tender. And until the 31st of July 69, there were also halfpennies in circulation. And then you've got a bob, which is 2 shillings, a crown, which is 5 shillings, or 5 bob, it was also called, a half sovereign, which is 10 shillings, and a half guinea, which is 10 shillings and 6 pence.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
I know.
I've heard of all of those except the bob. Never heard that before.
Yeah, apparently a bob is what you say when you mean more than a shilling. Like,
okay.
Like the kind of the way that we use buck. Like, we're not going to say it's $1. Usually we say $2 almost always. You know, like if it's just one, you usually just say dollar. But apparently bob is like the slang for more than.
Gotcha.
So yeah, how much is a bob? Like just.
And see, they just left the EU, so that means the euro was so simple, but now they're back to all this nonsense.
I don't think they're back to it anymore. Now it's pence and pounds, and it's an equal, like, 100 pence to a pound.
Oh, is that how it works?
Now it is. But up until apparently 1960 and 69 was when this finally stopped. So yeah, 4 farthings is a penny, 12 pence is a shilling, 2 shillings is a florin, 5 shillings is a crown, 20 shillings is 1 pound, 21 shillings is a guinea.
21?
Why do you fucking need a guinea that's 1 pound and a shilling, and it's 1 shilling extra and you need a whole other fucking name for it? That is the dumbest thing I ever heard. So yeah. When I read this the first time, I was like, oh, she just made it bananas because wizards. And then I learned about this, and I was like, oh, she's basing this off of their fucking insane system that they already had. Anyway. So then Dumbledore, Hagrid is feeling sick, and he has to go get a drink after the ride down under Gringotts.
Don't forget he goes to get something for Dumbledore, though.
Almost forgot.
That mysterious package.
Yep. He leaned forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least, but at first he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped up in brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but knew better than to ask.
And Dumbledore's vault is under super secret protection. It's very different from like Harry's has a key.
Mm-hmm.
Dumbledore's Gringotts just does like this, not Gringotts. Griphook does this weird thing with his hand, and the wall just disappears. Which is a different level of security.
If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. How often do you check to see if anyone's inside? Harry asked. About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin.
That's reassuring. Can you imagine it just check every 10 years and find like 4 bodies in there?
I would love that. There was a small pile of people.
Like just dust and bones.
Did you see there was this thing that was circulating the other day of a woman who died in her apartment, and she was sitting on her couch with the TV on when she died, and they didn't find her body for 3 years.
Oh, God, that's my fucking nightmare. No, I did not see that.
3 years, and for some reason, she owned the apartment because she made pretty good money, so she had bought it outright. Oh. And the only reason they found her was because they had finally gotten a repossession, like, put through, and they went to find her, and they had somehow... Her electricity and everything was still on, and the TV was still on.
Oh my God.
And her body was so decomposed they needed to use dental records to make sure of who she was.
God, that's terrible.
Yeah, and she had, I guess, a bad relationship with her family, and they had tried to get in touch with her years earlier and before she died, and she rebuffed them and didn't want to talk to them. So then when nobody was like answering when they called, they just assumed it was just her not wanting to talk to them. So, yeah.
Have you ever seen that Steve Martin movie, The Lonely Guy?
Mm-mm.
That's my favorite. But there's a scene where he has like this this sort of like a fantasy that he's so alone in the world that he's going to die in front of his television and no one's going to find him for years. And I saw that when I was really little, and it's been stuck in my head since then. Like, oh my God, what if you die and like no one cares for years and years? And now you're telling me it really happened.
Yeah, like 3 years. I mean, Jesus, you know? And yeah, I don't know how people like didn't smell it because she's decomposed, you know?
I have
like,
a lot of questions. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, it was a pretty in-depth thing, and they went into more detail on like, but I just didn't read that much further. And I know I've asked you before, but you didn't watch Sex and the City.
No, I did.
You did. So you remember the episode where Miranda is buying her own apartment, and the woman's like talking about how, you know, the person before her who lived there, she's like, she died in there, you know. The cat ate half her face.
Oh, that's right.
And then, so, just you? And Miranda starts overfeeding her cat because she's like getting real paranoid. Yeah. Anyway, at least I know that if I disappeared, everybody'd be like, the fuck, where's the podcast? Even if they weren't worried about me.
That's
my page would be blowing up. Everybody'd be like, figure it out. Where is she? Somebody. And I have some fans that know my address because they sent me presents. So, yeah, you know, guys, you're my guardians and hope you're all right with that. Yep. So then Harry goes to Madame Malkin's to get his robes. And this is where he first meets Draco Malfoy.
Yeah, I forgot we met him so early.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just as fucking reprehensible. I mean, and he doesn't even, it's funny though, because we're watching him be him, but it's not in the context that we're used to where he's really antagonistic to Harry, because he doesn't know who it is yet.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just being himself.
Yes.
So he's not really poking at Harry to like pick a fight or anything. He's just Malfoying all over the place. And, you know, just, my father said this, and maybe I'll sneak in a broom, and I don't think the muggles should be allowed, and it just,
Yeah, I think I'll bully father into getting me one, and I'll smuggle it in somehow. Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. Have you got your own broom? No. Play Quidditch at all? No. I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say I agree.
Yeah. And it's funny, too, is and of course, at the beginning of the book, I have no idea the significance of Malfoy asking right out, like, you know, what are you?
Right.
What are your parents? You know, whose family are you from?
What's your surname?
Oh, gross.
Mm-hmm.
And then his little, you know, quick bit about how he doesn't think they should be allowed to go to school there, and it, you know, it's just unseemly and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, she's showing us Rowling is showing us.
No, it's rolling.
Is it rolling?
Yeah.
I can't
They
remember.
see me rolling.
It is showing us right away who he is, what he's about, and that we're not going to like him.
Yeah, this is, like you said, super revealing. There's just so many little things. Like, know what house you'll be in? No. Well, no one really knows, but I know I'll be in Slytherin. Mm-hmm. If I were in Hufflepuff, I think I'd leave, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. And then pointing at Hagrid. Yeah. He's a sort of servant, isn't he? I hear he's a savage.
Yeah, his reaction to Hagrid tells us everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's a savage.
I think he's brilliant, said Harry coldly. Do you? Said the boy with a slight sneer. Why is he with you? Where are your parents? They're dead. Oh, sorry. But they were our kind, weren't they? Mm-hmm.
What do you think when he calls Hagrid a savage? Is that like a hint towards rumors about Hagrid?
Probably.
Or just... Yeah?
Probably, right?
Okay.
That's that low-key, like...
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought, too.
Yeah, I think so. Lives in a hut on the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk, tries to do magic, and ends up setting fire to his bed. Which sounds like exactly the kind of rumor that somebody like Voldemort would have started.
Yeah.
To discredit him.
That it does.
Let's see. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter. Imagine. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway?
Yeah. And Harry doesn't really get a chance to answer him. At this moment, thankfully.
Yeah.
I was as relieved as Harry was when it's time for him to go. It really was.
So he had been like really excited, and this brings him down a lot because he realizes he doesn't know shit about shit in this world. And when Hagrid mentions that, he's, tells Hagrid about the conversation. And he said people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. You're not from a Muggle family. If he'd have known who you were, he's grown up knowing your name. If his parents are wizarding folk, you saw what everyone in the Leaky Cauldron was like when they saw you. Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw were the only ones with magic in them in a long line of Muggles. Look at your mom. Look what she had for a sister. So Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and he says, everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but I bet I'm in Hufflepuff, said Harry gloomily. Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin, said Hagrid darkly. There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was one. Which we find out later, there were plenty who went bad that weren't in Slytherin.
Yeah.
But, and let's see, then they go and get his books, his cauldron, and then he has to get an owl, which Hagrid offers to buy him for a birthday present.
Oh, that's right.
It's like the first present that Harry gets. The cake that he brought for Harry, too, I forgot to mention, is the first birthday cake Harry ever got. Which is just like, oh.
Yeah, 11 years old.
Oh, God. Harry now carried a large cage that held a beautiful snowy owl, fast asleep with her head under her wing. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it. Don't expect you've had a lot of presents from them Dursleys. And then, time to get his wand. Dun, dun, dun. So, side note, girl, I cannot wait to go to Ollivanders with you at Wizarding World. It is so awesome. Like, it's, of course, corny the way that things are in places like that. But they have really managed to make it feel real. They do this thing where it's a shop that's very small and piled high with boxes everywhere. And they only let in like 12 guests at a time. So it feels intimate. Mm-hmm. And then they do this thing and involve the audience. And it's just the cutest thing. I love it so much. It was like, the Forbidden Forest ride was awesome. And it's the best ride in any park I've ever been on, to be honest. But this little thing just like pulled my heartstrings for some reason, because it felt like they put so much effort into making it feel real. It wasn't a ride. It didn't feel like an attraction. It just felt like this little moment, you know? Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And I heard that they built a second one. There are two Ollivanders, one in Hogsmeade and one in Diagon Alley, which is a good idea because the line, even when we went on the off season, the line for that was the longest because it takes the longest to get through with just 12 people and the whole thing being like 5 minutes long. It's longer in the shop than it is like on a ride, you know? So yeah, just side note, I'm excited about that. Yes, said the man. Yes, I thought I'd be seeing you soon, Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. You have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself buying her first wand. 10 1/4 inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice wand for charm work. Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished he would blink. Those silvery eyes were a bit creepy. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand, 11 inches, pliable, a little more power, and excellent for transfiguration. Well, I say your father favored it. It's really the wand that chooses the wizard, of course. And he goes up to Harry and touches his scar. I'm sorry to say I sold the wand that did it, he said softly. 13.5 inches. You. Powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hands. Well, if I'd known what that wand was going out in the world to do. And then he sees Hagrid and kind of reprimands him about his wand. I've still got the pieces, though, but you don't use them, said Mr. Ollivander sharply. Oh, no, sir, said Hagrid quickly. Harry noticed he gripped his pink umbrella very tightly as he spoke.
Oh, hello?
What? I'm here.
Oh, wait, lost you. Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, sorry about that.
I'm back? You hear me now?
Yeah,
okay.
I got you.
That's weird. So Harry tries out the wands, and he goes through a lot of them.
Yeah, it takes a while. I don't think I remembered it being quite this many different wands.
Yeah, I like that Ollivander's having trouble figuring him out.
Mm-hmm. It fits really well with what's coming next with the Sorting Hat.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true. He had no idea what Mr. Ollivander was waiting for. The pile of tried wands was mounting higher and higher on the spindly chair, but the more wands Mr. Ollivander pulled from the shelves, the happier he seemed to become. Mm-hmm. Tricky customer, huh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. I wonder now. Yes, why not? Unusual combination. Holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. Harry took the wand. He felt a sudden warmth in his fingers. He raised the wand above his head, brought it swishing down through the dusty air, and a stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end like a firework, throwing dancing spots of light on the walls. Hagrid whooped and clapped, and Mr. Ollivander cried, "Oh, bravo! Yes, indeed! Oh, very good! Well, well, well! How curious! How curious!" And he keeps whispering that because he's a fucking drama queen. And he just wants Harry to ask him.
Right.
This kind of shit, this passive-aggressive shit where somebody's like muttering something and they want you to...
Don't do it out.
So fucking petty that if I hear somebody trying to lead me, I purposely ignore it until there's no other choice. I cannot give people the satisfaction. It just makes me too irritated. If you want to tell me something, then you better fucking tell me. Otherwise, I don't really want to stand here and hear you like fucking mumbling to yourself like you're walking into walls. And gets me annoyed. So its brother gave you that scar. Harry swallowed. Yes, 13.5 inches, you. Curious indeed how these things happen. The wand chooses a wizard, remember? I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great.
That's pretty heavy to be laying on a little kid.
Yeah, man. Like, hey, you have the same, fingerprints as Hitler.
Basically. But don't let that get you down.
It's fine, whatever. It probably just means that you have an enormous destiny. I don't know. So, Hagrid takes Harry out for a hamburger, and he says, You all right, Harry? You're very quiet. Everyone thinks I'm special, he said at last. All those people and Leaky Cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander, but I don't know anything about magic at all. How can they expect great things? I'm famous, and I can't even remember what I'm famous for. I don't know what happened when the night my parents died. Which is basically exactly what Dumbledore had said. Mm-hmm. Being famous for something he can't even remember.
Right.
Your ticket for Hogwarts, he said, 1st of September, King's Cross. It's all on your ticket. Any problem with the Dursleys, send me a letter with your all. She'll know where to find me. See you soon. And then the train pulled out, and he's gone.
Yeah, and he's got to go back to the Dursleys.
Yeah, that's the biggest bummer.
Yeah, right. I was kind of over them. I'm ready for the other stuff to happen, but we're not there yet.
It's really crazy how short this book is, though.
Yeah, I meant to pull it out earlier this week, and I didn't. And so I was like going through my bookshelves trying to find it, and I was gotten accustomed to the later books.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I was looking for a big fat hardcover book, and I couldn't find it. I was like, oh wait, no, this is the little tiny paperback. Yeah, I'm like, we're already almost 100 pages in.
Oh, so you don't even have the hardcover for the first one?
Not for the first one, no.
Oh, shit.
And one of these, I don't think I have a paper copy. One of them, I just have the Kindle copy. Might be the third book.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of them, or I might be lying. I have one that I read as an ebook, and I don't know if I got a actual paper copy later and we just got the ebook because of timing. I'll have to check and see.
I feel like, okay, yeah, I remember what you're talking about, because there was a weird moment there where we were like, where's the book?
Yeah. I think that's what it is. I think I got the hardcover or the paper copy later, but we just needed to have something so we could record on schedule.
Oh, boy. This is fun. I'm excited about this reread. Yay! I'm laughing, though, because we both were like, oh, this probably won't be too long to record. It's an hour and a half long.
Oh, my God. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are just verbose, I guess. Or else we're just, like, talking a lot of shit. And people are just like, I mean, I guess, guys.
I guess they'll let us know.
Right?
Little from column A, a little from column B.
So tomorrow you and I are going to be recording Sherlock.
That is correct.
The Abominable Bride episode.
Yep.
Weird one, right?
It was. I liked it.
I just finished watching season 4.
I saw some of your commentary.
I have
not too
no
much.
idea how to feel about it. Like it's so rare for me to not really have a solid opinion, but I can honestly say that I can't decide if it was brilliant or idiotic.
Oh, I'm so excited now.
I'm super on the fence. But yeah, if you're a patron, you guys will be able to hear those. That's open to every level of patron tiers. So it sounds like I'm saying crying tears. Give me all your tears, patrons.
I collect your tears.
And I feel like there was another thing that I wanted to mention. Oh, I was thinking about doing something, because you know how like a lot of things they'll be like, oh, sign up for our newsletter and get a free copy of like a form that you can print or something. You know what I'm talking about? Like lame little giveaway things.
Oh yeah, okay.
For me, I say print something that you can print because I do planner stuff. So there'll be like planner blogs that are like, get a free budget printable if you sign up for my newsletter. And yes, that works on me. I won't lie. I kind of want to do a free, like a short podcast giveaway with people signing up for my newsletter. But I don't know what I would want the like one-off silly episode to be about.
And I say we, meaning the collective Unspoiled family. Mm-hmm. Are we capable of a short podcast?
That is a good question. I feel like we managed it with Dresden Files in the beginning. Yeah. Because things were like getting rolling. But that was like a specific subject. Like I feel like if we just went into it and we were like, let's talk about, and you just threw a general subject out there instead of something that had a specific beginning, middle, and end, it would go on ages.
For fucking ever.
I mean, you and I were chatting for what? Hour and a half before we started recording?
At least.
It's 10:30 now.
Yeah. And we started it. Yeah, we've been on the phone for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, because it was 2 full hours of us talking before we even press record.
Yeah.
We are out of control. That's what I should fucking do, is just press record on our fucking pre-chat and record that, and then it'll be done and we won't even have had to think about it. That's what it should fucking be, is just us riffing and talking about dumb politics and idiots on Facebook. That's most of what our conversations are, guys, is us yelling about people that are idiots.
And it goes on forever.
Oh my God. Especially because we're like almost ready to record. We're like, okay, let's do this. And then I'm like, oh, did I tell you about this motherfucker? Especially since we both, we took Wednesday off. So normally we get a lot of this out of our system by Friday, but we hadn't talked all week. So we were just like,
we had shit to say.
Filled to the brim with tea. Yeah. Oh, maybe that's what we should call it, is like the tea podcast.
Oh my God, filled to the brim with tea.
Tea time with RoShawn and Natasha. I kind of love this idea. Oh, I kind of love this idea. Guys, would you be interested in a tea time episode?
Who
sounds like
to hear that?
It sounds like I'm talking about golf, though, right?
That's true.
Maybe
true.
Tea party. That's
Oh
good.
my God.
Tea party with RoShawn and Natasha. But then it sounds like I'm talking about the extremist group.
Oh my God, it does.
Oh, everything is terrible.
No,
Fuck.
scratch that.
High tea. High tea with RoShawn and Natasha. Does that sound like we're high? Does it sound like a weed podcast?
Oh my God.
Nothing works. Nothing works. High tea is like as close as I can think, though. Tea and crumpets?
Oh
No,
my
now
God.
it's too British now.
You have to stop.
This might give you an idea of what it's like to live inside my head.
Oh my God.
I'm just staring at the wall, apparently unmoving, and yet in my mind I'm going, tea time. Tea time? No. High tea party? No. High tea? No. Tea and crumpets? No. Cream tea? No. Tea sandwiches? Cucumber sandwiches? I'm just like going fucking, I'm like the Tasmanian devil.
I can't wait for you to say teabag, but you never said it.
No. Teabagging RoShawn and Natasha. Everything is terrible.
God, I'm sorry. I'm so embarrassed.
I can't believe I didn't think of that. I can't believe you thought of that before
I
me.
was waiting and waiting. And
What even happened? Oh my God.
Oh shit. Oh my God. My fucking face literally hurts from laughing.
All right, guys. Well, you think of something. You guys, I'm just going to hand this off and abdicate all responsibility. You go ahead, and we're going to go.
Yeah, we should go.
So, love you all. Thank you for listening.
Bye, guys.
And we will see you next week with 5 more chapters. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Glass on my face, you're a disgrace. The mentor try to suck up my face. But yeah, boy, I survived that shit. Scar on my face and my coat so lit. I was a little boy, but now I'm grown. Started all off with the philosopher's stone. Then I took your girl to the secret chamber. I made her work her body, I call it labor. But hey, there's more. Shout out to my nigga Dumbledore. Before I try to kill him, but he a little bitch. Instead he got killed by the Half-Blood Prince. Tryna diss me, see that coming from far. Saw a girl sitting by the potion bar. She told me she was home alone, and then we went in my flying car. Cause I got that black magic. Got that black magic. Got that black magic. I got that black magic. Nigga, I was born with a wand in my hand. Boy, you a liar from a one night stand. You killed Dumbledore and you didn't mean it, but you did it anyway. Now you can't feel it.
You know what I'm saying.
Can you do that again?
No.
What was it?
I know, because you're probably going to be recording.
I'm not recording. Just say it again.
I don't believe you. It's the rereading me. rereading these.
Oh, God. Welcome to Unspoiled.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.